Look, I think that the main purpose for Kevin McCarthy doing what he's done and announcing an impeachment inquiry is to help Donald Trump in the presidential election. I think he wants to be able to say, he wants voters across the country to be able to read headlines that say House launches Joe Biden impeachment inquiry. And if you look at headlines from newspapers across the country, many of them carried those headlines. And without going much deeper, as many voters won't, they will think, oh, Donald Trump was impeached, Joe Biden was impeached, and come to the conclusion that either everybody's corrupt and everybody does things worthy of being impeached, even if Joe Biden is not actually likely to be impeached, or they will say, boy, Washington is so partisan and so broken, people are taking shots at one another. How do I choose who's good and who's bad? And I think McCarthy probably accomplished that. We know there was reporting in Politico a couple of days ago that Donald Trump has been coordinating with House Republicans, including Elise Stefanik and others in leadership, about this. He's been making open calls on social media, calling for Joe Biden's impeachment, not really making a sort of solid case about exactly why, or not showing that he has any deep understanding of the evidence. And I agree with Jonah, there is evidence that's problematic for Joe Biden. Instead, just saying you should do it to him because he did it to me. So I think if you sort of stop and take a step back, that's really why this is happening. Whatever the Freedom Caucus machinations are, whatever the internal House politics are, I think that's the sort of the biggest argument. It's very grim. Yeah, look, I mean, we don't really have themes, or at least we don't have themes on purpose on this podcast. But one of the things we talk about pretty consistently is this idea of performative politics and what it's done to governance, what it's done to what happens in Washington, D.C. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think that's what we're seeing here with a lot of the dancing around on spending. You have Republicans who suddenly cared tremendously about spending, who didn't care at all about spending under Donald Trump, or to the extent that they cared about spending under Donald Trump, they wanted more. They supported his calls for more spending, most of them. And now they're willing to shut down the government to get, what are, I would say, relatively minor in the scheme of things, changes to discretionary spending. This is not serious. This is all about performative politics and getting hits on Fox News or praise on Steve Bannon's podcast. And it's frustrating. I think it's frustrating to those of us who observe it from the outside. But as it happens, I talked to two Republican members of the House yesterday, and talked about exactly this. These are serious people. They came to Washington to do serious things. They're conservatives. Everybody would describe them as conservatives. And they said, I'm just done with this. This is so frustrating. And voiced sort of the kinds of concerns about where this is going that we've often expressed on this podcast. And the real fear is, and we're seeing it, as you guys both noted, with Mitt Romney's departure, is that just good people will leave. They don't want to do this anymore. If you come to Washington, you subject yourself to the kind of scrutiny that running for office requires these days, and you are willing to, spend hours in a dank basement making fundraising calls to hand over to the leadership of your party in either chamber so that you have the privilege of remaining in Congress. You want to be able to do something in addition to sort of spinning your wheels on the fundraising stuff. And as you figure out that, as more and more members of Congress figure out that they just can't do much because the performative people are running things, or driving the debate, winning the arguments, leading leadership around, good people are just going to continue to leave. And, we've seen that. You go back to the kind of, I was doing a lot more reporting. Many of the really good people that I had as my sources in Congress are gone now. They've just said, forget it. And, when I was doing more reporting, I sought out the people I thought were smartest, most thoughtful, people likely to be in leadership, people already in leadership. And there are just a lot fewer of those people to call on.